Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 5, Now. Now, in this episode, I didn't want to say now, but I had to. In this episode, we had two side characters that I think had some very important roles for this episode, and that was definitely Jesse and Deanna. Now, with Jesse, I think it was fairly simple because it was her kind of continuing on from the attack with the wolves, where she definitely had to step up and she had to defend her home and herself and her children. So that is certainly continued on in this episode, where she has kind of changed a little bit and she has the interaction with one of the people of Alexandria who actually commits suicide, and so she becomes a zombie and she has to kill her and basically in front of a bunch of other people, and then she gives a really good speech about how like she's kind of one of the few people, probably the only person from Alexandria, or definitely one of the few people. She's not the only one, but she's one of the few people from Alexandria that have actually transitioned into people or into someone who's similar to the original cast, and she's grown in that aspect, and she still, she can look around and easily see these are certain characters that, these are certain people really that haven't done that 100%. And so she gives a really good speech about how sheltered she was and how she didn't want to see some of the things that were going on, but she has to. Like, they all have to at this point. They have to, because if they don't fight, then they die. And that's kind of a big thing right now. I mean, it's not just even, zombies or, them being lost out in the woods or any of that crap. They have other human beings attacking them now. So they have to fight more than they ever have before. It's not just be careful with this or, make sure if you do this, look around yourself. There are people, that can use guns just like they can. There's someone, if they found a sniper rifle, they could do the same thing and just pick people off inside of the camp. If there are no mountains around or anything that's actually higher than the wall. But, hypothetically, there are people smart enough to do that type of stuff. And they do have to fight in order to survive now, and they can't be the sheltered Alexandria that they used to be. And Jesse in this sense has really grown, and I don't know if it's the opposite for Deanna. I really don't know for Deanna. I wouldn't say it's the opposite where she's become like even more regressed and she doesn't want to see what's happening, but she's certainly not in a stable mind. She, in the first scene where they kind of bring attention to her character for this episode, she's walking away from the group. It's not even the opening scene where they really bring attention to her. That's just like a crazy scene where, when I first saw that, honestly, I was just like, man, Rick couldn't have like ninja'd that like 0.2% or something, just zigzag or something. He's just running down the street like, open the gate, like open the fucking gate. And so he basically, bum rushes one of the zombies because there are zombies even in front of him. He's dodging zombies, and he just, shoves one to the ground. And I'm like, man, they are completely surrounded now. But the first real scene where they bring attention to her, she's just walking away from the group. Like, Rick is saying, this happened, and that happened, and we give the story of how the wolves actually found the pack, from their crazy little trap they had set up with all the zombies in the truck trailers. And she gets called out for just walking away from the whole situation. And the whole episode, that's kind of what it was. She was walking away from things when people were basically just taking all the food for themselves because everyone's freaking out like, oh, we're just going to be dead tomorrow anyway, with, all these walkers at the gate. She just stood there, she looked at the woman, and she's looking at her and it's just like, great, no help. Her son stepped in, although we do find out that was actually just to kind of take things for himself. And that was really the only time she stood up, once he kind of broke down in front of her. And that's when she really stood up and, kind of realized, I can't mope around, because then this type of stuff really will happen. And it won't just be the other people that I know. It'll be my own son, who I really just blamed her for the death of the rest of their family, really. So I liked the way that she stepped up, but I was still really worried. She had the scene with the zombie at the end, the last, well, not the last wolf, because there's technically still the one that Morgan locked up, the guy that he hasn't killed twice. So he's technically still in there. But, the zombie comes at her and she's like, freaking out and just stabbing the crap out of it. I honestly thought that she'd get bit or something crazy was going to happen. But, Rick comes in and he does the final blow. I was surprised she even got as far as she did because she was just stabbing it in the stomach. And that was a really tall guy, too. So I was like, considering how tall they had the actor who's the zombie was, and the fact that she was just stabbing him in the chest, I was like, I think she's going to at least get scratched. I didn't think she'd just flat out get killed in that scene. But I was really worried because this guy is like super huge and she's like this short little lady compared to him at least, and you know he like tumbles down and stuff. I'm like, okay, she can at least like stab him in the head, and she was still just stabbing the zombie in the neck, and I'm like, okay, she could still get, all he has to do is just do that, and one little scratch and she could be done. And then Ray comes in, he does the final little piece, and she's just like, I want to live, and I don't know what that means, honestly. I mean, she says she wants to live, but I don't think she's in the right mindset to make it happen. Because even in that ending scene with her, she goes up to the gate and she's like, banging on the gate, antagonizing all the zombies. And I don't think that's really going to do much. That's not going to make them like go insane and they'll, be even stronger. They're going to be pushing up against the gate no matter what. That doesn't help. Technically, it could make things go a little bit faster. But, yeah, it was just like she's a little bit better by the end, but still not 100%. And then the other really big thing that took place at the end of this episode was that little bit of blood that was pouring through. That was really just to show that there's a weakness in the gate. And that was it. Like, right now, it's just some blood is pouring through, so that's really nothing. But the fact that there's a hole means that there's a pressure point. Like, if there's enough pressure on it, even, steel or whatever, there's a hole there, enough pressure, and it will expand, and so eventually it's gonna like pop open in that little part of the gate. So for anyone, if you guys were wondering why they kind of showed that off, that's why that mattered, because it's not just the fact that like, oh, it's just blood coming down. It's the fact that there's a hole there somewhere, and even that little bit is enough. Like, over time, it would take quite a bit of time since it is like giant sheets of metal. But there's, if more zombies do come and they keep piling on, we'll get a very similar scene to what we had back at the prison when they had all the gates up and just more and more zombies are coming along, and they, fall on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other, and then they'll start pushing stuff, pushing gates down, pushing walls down. So I think that was, I could still be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was the significance of that, is that there is even the smallest little weak point, that's all it takes, and that's going to allow the zombies to get in. And like I said, that would take quite a bit of time, so that probably won't happen for a couple more episodes. But I think that was the significance of that one. Another, it was sort of a minor scene, but actually, Carl's scene was pretty interesting, where he was going to go out and get Enid, and he's basically stopped by Jesse's son, who's like, I'll tell your dad. And we do find out that he didn't leave, because I thought for sure, like, oh, he's still going to take off. But then, when Jesse's son goes to see Rick, he's like, oh, yeah, I saw him, on the porch and everything. I was like, oh, okay. So, everything's fine then. He actually did stay. He knew that he'd tell on him, so. Which is funny. It's like, I'll tell your dad. But mostly it was the point that he knew if a bunch of people went out, they could easily get killed. Especially with, all the zombies, like, right at the gate. So that was something that was pretty interesting for sure. And then I think this was definitely the other biggest thing, because there were really 3 storylines, and they were all about the women in this episode. And I love that. It was actually, I didn't think about that until like just now, but really like all the storylines. There even there's a 4th storyline with the doctor, or soon, working to be a doctor. She's she's getting it. She's trying to, and she's kind of constantly getting pushed, like, hey, it sucks to be scared and stuff. And she's going through her book. She even got, when she was in the spot with Jesse, it was like, okay, that was another moment, like, just gotta go for it. And ultimately she does end up saving the guy who, like, seemingly the only person to survive from the other episode. So that was pretty cool. She figured that out. She sucked all that gross ness out of his leg, and he totally survived, and he was fine. We got a surprising kiss because I wasn't sure that was gonna happen because I believe in the comic books that she's with someone else. I believe she's with a guy in the comics. I could easily be wrong. There's so many people that kind of get introduced in the Alexandria thing, and I haven't read the comics in forever. I still have to read the third compendium, and I haven't. I've had it since like I think I've only had it since like the 23rd of October, but I haven't even like cracked it open yet, so I can't really remember everyone's position. Totally different position. Like how she was introduced in the comics is so different than how she was introduced in the show. Like in this, she was just like, "Hey, I'm kind of the new doctor," but in the comics, she actually used to work for the governor, and so when she kind of figured out how crappy things were, the team kind of goes in to save somebody or do something. I really can't. It's been forever since I read that, but they do something in the governor's camp, and then she and this other doctor, they're like, "All right, this guy's an a-hole. Let's come with you and we'll help, cure whoever you need because we're here to actually help people, especially if they're innocent," which obviously was a whole big thing, kind of similar to what was in the show where the governor was kind of lying about Rick and his team and what they did. But very surprising, like the fact that she was able to kind of step up in this episode and she saved the guy. Is going to give her a bit more confidence. Much better than the first episode where it was like, I thought they were going to give her like that nice little boost of confidence in the first episode, and that did not happen, and she lost that patient. That woman died. So it's like, okay, at least she saved this guy, so that's good. So, this was like her first real win, which is very nice. And then, of course, the final thing, which was very surprising to me, is Maggie. So Maggie going after Glenn was like, okay, still up in the air. Maybe he's dead, maybe he's not dead. Still technically don't know. Movie magic, TV magic, whatever. Could be dead. Could have just been the way they shot it. Maggie decides that she's gonna go out there, and then they have a really crazy scene. And it made now that once it got to the end, that first scene when they like ripped that gate open and those two zombies came out at them, it makes sense now why she wasn't in the same mindset that she's normally in, because typically Maggie's just like everybody else, where it's just like boom, done, she's ready to go, no big deal. And in that scene she was like backing up again, she got backed against the wall, and I was like, why is she freaking out so much? Like all that happened, like she wasn't knocked down or anything. Excuse me. So I was like, why is she freaking out so much? And all she had to do was go boom and it's done. And then we get the ending scene when they're finally at the gate, they're able to get out and they can go and see and try to figure out what happened with Glenn and Nick. And she says no, like it's over because she's actually pregnant. And I was not expecting that at all, to be totally honest. And I remember when the premiere started, there was some article that said, did they, like spoil whether or not one of the main characters was pregnant, or did they like kind of secretly hint at whether or not someone was pregnant, which I have to find that article now, because I was like, how in the world could they have gotten that from that first premiere? I was like, nothing even remotely seemed to happen that hinted at Maggie being pregnant. I'm assuming they were talking about Maggie. I didn't actually read it because that was before I even watched the premiere. But I was really surprised by that. And I really hope Glenn is alive now, because I would love for it to be different than what it is in the comics, because it's not the best in there. It's actually quite similar right now. So hopefully he is actually found out to be alive, and they kind of keep a happier tone. They didn't chop Rick's hand off, so they could totally just bring Glenn back and have an actual full family, because that ain't the case in the comic books. Things were not so nice, and at this point it's kind of exactly the same, just minus the way that he died. It was totally different in the comics, if he's actually dead. So I'm hoping even more so now that Glenn is alive, because it's like, oh, Maggie actually was pregnant. So hopefully we find that in the next episode, which doesn't seem to be the case. It doesn't seem like that'll be even a focus in the next one. It's going to be Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham, which I'm looking forward to because they're kind of just lost. I'm not even remotely worried about them. It's the Glenn thing that's kind of up in the air. So, like they had a scene with Rick and Jesse, and Rick finally got that kiss he was looking for. He does mention, like, I wanted everyone back, and we don't know if they're out there and stuff like that. And he mentioned Abraham, Sasha, and Daryl, and I was like, oh, well, they're fine. It's Glenn that I'm curious about. And it was funny how just meh I was about it when he mentioned them. I'm like, they're fine. They won't be dead. And it was like, it's The Walking Dead. I doubt they'd do that so soon. Even if Glenn was secretly alive, I doubt they'd actually kill someone off and then it's like, surprise, Glenn is alive. Or maybe they would, because that was something I was thinking too. If they killed Maggie in this episode, and then we found out like a couple episodes later that Glenn actually was alive, but you know, just speculation. Because it's The Walking Dead, you just don't really know 100%. But it was kind of funny. Like he mentioned them, and I was like, they'll be fine. It's like it's Glenn that we have to look out for. But this is a nice episode. I'm curious. I'm actually really curious what the next episode is going to be like because it's going to focus on them so much. It seems like it's going to be pretty fun. Oddly enough, I'm actually looking forward to them exploring a new area because we haven't seen that in a while because they settled in Alexandria, and technically we've still seen them because like even in the last episode or the episode before that, we've seen them kind of exploring new areas. Like when they had to do the whole mission, they had to take on all those zombies that were in like that, whatever that store was, they had to do all that stuff. So it's like we've seen them go to new areas. In the episode where Nick does kill himself, that was like a whole city that we'd never seen before. So they've definitely been to other areas, but I don't know. It's like it's so in passing, where it's like the focus is really on them, and the group was really in like that one little building, and that's it. Everything else was just like the outside of stuff. So I'm looking forward to the next episode being like, here's them like walking down a creepy hallway and they're all alone, like one character by themselves, and you don't know what's around the next corner. I'm actually looking forward to that because I always like that. It's just creepy, the creepy atmosphere. I feel like we don't have as much because they're now in like it's not even creepy atmosphere. It's just chaotic atmosphere. So I'd like to get back to the sort of creepy one person who knows how many zombies in the house sort of feel, because at this point it's just mass chaos. We don't know who's doing what. Enid's off, I don't know, probably giving information to people. Who knows. So bunch of insanity, people possibly dead, people lost and guided hordes away somewhere else. Half the rest of the horde is just circling around Alexandria, people going crazy inside Alexandria, killing themselves, arguing with each other. Bunch of madness. So I'm actually looking forward to just here's three characters just kind of trying to figure some stuff out. So I'm looking forward to it. Enjoyed this episode. I was pretty surprised about Maggie actually being pregnant. But it's actually pretty cool. I'm curious how the other characters are going to react to that when she actually tells them. But they have the little scene at the end, and they're like wiping the names off, and then it was funny. Like she's wiping Glenn's name off, and I'm like, okay. And then I can't remember the guy's name, but he comes up and he starts wiping off Nicholas's name, and I was like, oh, might want to leave that one up there because there's no point. Something else I wonder is where the heck was his boyfriend? Like where has he been in these past couple episodes? I think he was in the premiere, maybe, but I know he didn't die. At least not that I remember. I'm pretty sure I would have remembered him dying. So he's not dead. I think he may still be recovering because he had like a broken ankle or whatever. But they haven't even like shown him. There was nothing like, oh, he survived, all of the madness or anything like that. Unless I completely missed it, which I totally could have because that tends to happen. But I'm pretty sure they just haven't had him in an episode. And I was like, that was really weird. But enjoyed this one. Not 100% sure. People didn't seem to be as mad at Rick as I was expecting them to be. I thought for sure that he was going to have a lot of opposition when this episode started. Because, like I said, him just running at the gate and bringing, this whole horde with him. Not exactly the best. Like, people died during the whole mission, which admittedly, that wasn't really his fault. They had to do that just, like, on the fly, because those trucks fell over, so they had no choice. But people, I thought for sure were still gonna blame him, even though it was totally the only reason that even happened was because of the wolves. Really, like the whole plan actually worked out totally fine, aside from the wolves. Like that's the only reason the one guy died, I believe, because he was like, "Oh crap, things are going crazy. I'll take the lead and all this stuff." None of that would have even happened if it weren't for that horn going off. They were totally fine. So, or maybe that was before the horn. I don't know. He's dead, so it doesn't really matter now. But I thought for sure he'd have a lot more opposition in this. I thought people were gonna be like talking about how much they're mad at him and this and that because he brought all these zombies straight literally to their front door. So I was surprised by that. I'm glad that it didn't happen because it would have just caused even more chaos, and they really don't need that now. Even just with what I'm assuming is coming the rest of this season, they definitely don't need that. But we only got 3 more episodes for this year, which is really insane to me. It's crazy that we're almost at the mid-season finale, only so many episodes in. We're not even. It would be 6. It would only be 8 episodes before the 8th episode is going to be the mid-season finale. So that's kind of crazy to me that that's how things are set up. But that being the case, only 3 more episodes means it's got to be pretty intense. The next one is sort of a solitary focus, but the next 2 after that, those are going to have some pretty major stuff in it. We might get some more important info on the wolves, which I'm really looking forward to. But I do want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and of the transitions of the female characters we had in this episode, which one was your favorite? Because we had really 4 different stories. There were mostly 3 that were like obviously the main points, and that would of course be Jessie, Deanna, and Maggie. For me personally, I think just the reveal, it would have to be Maggie. The fact that she's pregnant, because her change, there wasn't really much any change. It was just that we kind of got the reveal, and we did see a little bit, like I said, when those zombies attacked them, which I didn't talk about this, but I love that scene when she's like, her arm is like going up the rib cage of the zombie, and then it comes out the other side, because those zombies have been there for so long. Like, the zombie literally had a beard. I was like, these are just like some crazy old school zombies. Like, they've been dead forever. So I loved how they did that. I wish we see. I hope we get way more of that because that was really gross. But at the same time, I was like, that is pretty amazing. And her arm just goes straight up the rib cage and like comes out the back of the zombie, and she's just barely holding it off. I also thought for sure that she was gonna do like a crazy Mortal Kombat move and like rip his head off. I was like, if she can go through it and stuff, I was like, she could like Sub-Zero this thing and just rip his head right out of his spine. But that probably would have been a bit much for The Walking Dead. That would have been amazing to see, to be totally honest. But I want to know what your favorite sort of storyline was in this episode. So please comment below and let me know. And thanks for watching.